Welcome to the Thrive Forever Fit Show, the podcast that's here to ignite your potential and guide you on a journey towards living your best life. I'm your host, Jay Nixon, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. On this show, we're passionate about one thing, and that's helping you reach your full potential, whether that's in your health and fitness, relationships, career, or personal growth. We're here to provide you with tools, strategies, and inspiration to thrive in every aspect of your life. Each episode will dive deep into topics that matter most, featuring insightful interviews with experts, thought leaders, and individuals who've achieved extraordinary success. Together, we're going to explore powerful mindset shifts, nutrition and fitness strategies, effective goal setting, mindfulness techniques, and much, much more. We'll break down the barriers that hold you back and help you build resilience, focus, and unwavering determination. So if you're ready to unleash your potential and embark on a transformative journey, this podcast is for you. It's time to embrace your inner fire, tap into your limitless capabilities, and make every day an opportunity for growth and self-improvement. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and empowered to live the life you've always dreamed of. The Thrive Forever Fit Show is here to support you every step of the way. Let's dive in. Before we dive into the show, I want to take a quick moment to talk about the sponsor of this episode. It is very dear and near and close to my heart because it is Lori's company, SpaStar. If you ever had the opportunity to watch someone create something from a thought or a vision and make this magical thing actually come to life, well, then you'll know why I'm so extremely proud of her and why I'm so excited to have her sponsoring the Thrive Forever Fit Show. If you've listened to my podcast, then you probably heard her on episode 259. If you haven't heard that, I would go listen to episode 259 as soon as you finish this episode. She talks about the story of how she created it, the adversity she overcame, the challenges that she worked through, and just the inspirational story that I know you're absolutely going to love. But what SpaStar is a luxury wrap. And it was created as a spa wrap for people who were getting beauty treatments. But what we found out is it is a piece for everyday life. People are wearing it as swimsuit cover-ups, resort wear, just to get ready in the mornings or for that special event. It is the most unique piece. And I've actually worn this thing several times. I was the actual first model for this. Maybe I'll show you guys some photos of that, Fred, when the time is right. But it is such a cool creation called the Get Ready Wrap by SpaStar. And because you're a listener, you get 15% off today because you support me. So just go to spastar.net, the word spa, the word star.net. And at the checkout, enter Thrive15, THRIVE 15, and you're going to get 15% off of your Get Ready wrap. So many of my clients already have these and absolutely love them. We're selling them all over the country and all over the world, for that matter, to high-end luxury spas and to people just like you that are using them inside of their own homes. They're traveling with them. They're using them at the pool. It's so really just unbelievably cool to see and witness. And I'm so blessed to be a part of it. And I'm so blessed to have Lori actually sponsoring my podcast, which I think is really, really cool. So go check out SpaStar. I know you're going to love it. It is the coolest thing ever. And guys, this isn't just for ladies. This is one of the coolest gifts you could get any female in your life, for that matter. If Lori hadn't have created it, I would buy them for her as a gift to show her my love and appreciation. So dudes, if you're listening and you need to get a gift for your significant other or some special person in your life, go to spastar.net, grab a Get Ready wrap. There's all kinds of colors. There's black, there's sage, there's a berry color, there's a gosh, I just went blank. There's a kind of a greeny, kind of avocado-y color. Really cool. You're definitely going to love these, I promise. So go to spastar.net, check it out, support Lori. And Lori, thank you for sponsoring the show. All right, let's get to the action. You ever meet somebody and know immediately, I'm going to be friends with that person? Well, that's what happened with my man, Hugh. He's going to be on today's podcast. He is a jack of all trades. He's a serial entrepreneur. He has a skincare company that is based off of CBD. It's called Cosmetic. He also has a cleaning solution company called Clean Republic. We're going to dive into both of those, why he created them. He's also an avid rock climber. My man's into music. He is a jack of all trades and just a cool dude. I met Hugh in Las Vegas a few months ago. He walked in the room, and like I said, I'm a big energy guy, and I'm like, I like this dude's energy. I'm going to get to know him, and I'm going to be friends with him. And here we are today. I've got Hugh on the podcast. You're going to fall in love with him just like I did. He's an exceptional human, and you're going to love today's show. Saddle up, get ready. Let's go. Hugh, my man, thanks for coming on the podcast today, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jay. Pleasure to be here, man. Just to hang out and talk.
Yeah, I know we chatted a little bit before I hit record, and you and I got the really unique opportunity to meet each other in Vegas, probably maybe a month and a half ago. My time flies, and I know it does for you.
Oh yeah.
Hugh just got off a plane from New York City, guys. So hats off to him for showing up to the podcast. So yeah, you travel like, I mean, half of the year you're on a plane or in a hotel or doing something really cool. And we'll talk about why in a second. But I was talking in the show, like in the intro, like I'm a big frequency guy. All my listeners know that. And when I met you in Vegas, I'm like, this is the kind of guy that I want to get to know. I want to know more about him.
Yep.
Super intrigued. And so thank you for just being like good energy, positive vibes, and just being a rock star dude. I appreciate that.
Now, do you take it to that level of like seeing the color spectrums of energy, or that's like a big thing in the spa industry where
yeah, I'm not really, well, first and foremost, I'm like semi colorblind, so no, it wouldn't do me any good. It wouldn't do me any good to even like, because if I can't tell the difference between like blue and purple and brown and green, and so I'd be a mess if that was it. I'm really into like, I got into like frequency music a long time ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, just like certain like hertz, like frequencies.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of tapped me into like being more aware of like humans. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're in the room with like with other humans and you pay attention,
yeah,
they give off a certain energy, man. And especially if they talk and the way they interact, the way they move. Yeah. And like I said to you earlier, like you were, Lori and I were in the room for the first time, right? This is probably like your 100th Live Love Spa. For us, we're like, as newbies, we're kind of looking around like, where do we fit in? Like, how does this work? Like, not knowing what to do. And I just remember like you had such a calming, like peaceful, awesome energy. You were so kind, so nice. And then everybody else that came over to our booth was like, have you met Hugh? Have you met Hugh? Have you talked to Hugh yet? Like, go talk to Hugh. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go meet this guy. And then when I did, you're just so awesome, dude. I just want to say I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that. And I really enjoyed the first time we met too, having good conversation. Some people just want to come up and talk business, and, I'd rather talk about energy frequencies, to be honest. So you appreciate that.
You and me both. And that's funny for you to say, because you're a business rock star. I mean, you have got 2 brands that I want to talk about both of them because I'm personally intrigued. But I think I told you this the first time we met. Like, I had been using your product for probably a year and a half. So Lori and I always stay at the Cosmo in Vegas. And so we go in and, you get all these points. You can never use all the points. So we're like, I'm going to try this lotion and this CBD and, this cream and stuff. And I've been using your stuff for a year and a half. And so when I saw you in the room and I'm like, wait a minute, like, I know that dude. I mean, I was like, I don't know the dude, but I know the product. Like I use that. And so that got me really intrigued, which I thought was really cool to like, put those 2 things together. So you've got a CBD based skincare brand that you created for a really unique reason. So can you kind of tell me, how that all came about?
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, my mom, she had gotten diagnosed with multiple sclerosis like 15 years ago or so. And, it started getting pretty bad a couple of years in, where she would just get this involuntary spasticity every night. It's pretty common with certain types of MS. And honestly, for the type of MS that she had, it really is one of the worst symptoms that you have. And it was just really rough to see her on all of these different types of painkillers and muscle relaxers that were sort of changing how she felt and interacted. And so like, I feel like we're probably very similar where, if we want to find something out, we'll just go research it ourselves. And so, I just started Googling and trying to read any sort of like white papers or, newer studies. And there was some research on, CBD, THC, other cannabinoids, and, the interaction of the endocannabinoid system with your central nervous system. And there's one study in particular that kind of caught my attention on its interaction with GABA. And so, I came to my mom and was like, hey, I think you should try CBD. And, she's from Tennessee. And so it was immediately like the devil's lettuce, like I was trying to get her to do heroin or something.
Right.
But, she would really only wanted to try topicals. I finally talked her into that. And we tried all these topicals out, and, nothing really happened. I think a lot of people have had that same experience. And then we tried an ingestible CBD product. It was a full spectrum tincture from someone. And it really, we felt impact within, the first 15 minutes. And that's what sort of made me really question, how does CBD interact with the body when it's smoked, or when you ingest it, or when you put it onto your skin? And so partnered up with a PhD and just started looking at that, just bioavailability of the different forms of CBD. And, when I've started businesses before, and I like really niche businesses. I don't like trying to cast this, really wide net. And I'm so glad that we thought about the spa industry being, a really good partnership with CBD, because, it's one of my favorite industries I've ever worked in, and can't see myself not working in the spa and wellness industries anymore. And so, now we have a farm in Colorado, got extraction facilities, manufacturing facilities, and, sell to the luxury spa industry a lot of really specialty products. If you go to like a CBD show or like a spa show, a lot of times they'll have dog treats and vaporizer pens and skincare, and I would never use skincare by like Purina dog food, right? So what makes you think that they make a good dog treat or skincare? And so we really just niched ourselves into the spa industry. And interestingly enough, my mom, she hasn't had a spasm in 3 years. And just as anybody's watching who does have MS, I want to point out that we make her a hot version of our cold pressed CBD oil, and that we put more THC in it. That's legal and under the farm bill. And so you do want a little bit of extra THC for MS in particular, but in general, cannabinoids have really taken away involuntary spasms from her life. It's really wild to see something that cannabinoids can do.
That's crazy. And I think you just signified why I'm like, I want to be friends with this guy, because you saw a problem and you said there's got to be a solution, and I'm going to go figure it out. And that's exactly how I am. Like the problem really becomes irrelevant to me, and I just focus on a solution, and I figure out like, I'm going to figure out how to make this particular situation better. Yeah. That's really what you did. And then you're like, well, I mean, if this works for mom, then there's an opportunity here for me to help way more people. And I love the fact that you said you niche down into the spa, like in wellness, variety, because you're so right. It's like you see, I call it like shotgun marketing or like shotgun sales, where like, everybody's my customer. Well, if everybody's your customer, then nobody's probably your customer. Right? Because like you said, like I don't want Purina dog treats making my CBD tincture that I'm using to go to sleep at night. Right. And vice versa. It's like, stay in your lane, specialize, and go from there. Well, so how long ago did you do this? How long have you had?
We started really looking into it about 7.5 years ago.
Okay.
And initially we were actually selling to the marijuana industry in Colorado. We had a marijuana license. And so part of the business was selling to dispensaries. At the time, you couldn't really get a bank account. And so everyone was like giving you bags of cash, and it was still a little new, a little sketchy. And so, we sort of just pivoted just into the CBD spa side. So the farm, really, we've been selling the spa industry for about 5 years now. At the end of this year, it'll be 5 years.
Which is unbelievable, because I can't go anywhere and not see your stuff. Like you are literally in every hotel that we go into, like every major resort, like your stuff is on the shelf. And I think I told you this when we met. I got pissed off because you changed your packaging and I didn't know it. And so I roll in the Cosmo, because if you guys have never been to the Cosmo, the gym is here. You walk down a little hallway and the spa is right there. So I'm leaving the gym and I'm like, hey babe, I'm going to go in and grab my stuff. Yeah. She's like, okay, cool. And so she's in there looking around, and I'm not getting my stuff and checking out, which is not like me. I know what I want. I get in and I get out.
Yep.
she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it's gone. She's like, what? I said, it's gone. And as we were walking out the door, I just happened to this caught my eye, like the name caught my eye, the cosmetic caught my eye. And I'm like, wait a minute, like maybe this is it. And so then I started opening boxes and pulling out jars. I'm smelling the stuff and I'm like, this is it. And so, yeah, I was pissed off for about 5 minutes there, but the new packaging is unbelievable. It's so cool, so like eco-friendly and sustainable. Like you did a fantastic job on that, dude.
It's really interesting. Like when I talk to people who are like starting businesses, they'll just kind of reach out and ask questions, just like I did with when I was starting the first company. And one of the things cosmetic really taught me is if you make a really, really good product, like you take all of your money, all of your time, build something that's great, the money will come regardless of the branding. And then you'll have that big amount of money to do branding in the future and do it right. Whereas I think a lot of people, they like raise too much money up front. They dump so much into this, like, into like the marketing and like how it looks, and don't really spend as much time on just like making the, best product, and then just get out and hustle and sell and sell and sell and try to get in as like many people's hand as possible. And if it's a good product, in the end, people don't really care what it looks like. I mean,
yeah.
If it works, it works.
Well, I mean, your old packaging I thought was good. I mean, it was cool. It was like, this is cool. Like, but the new stuff is just so clean and so chic, and they're like really like it goes right along with you and your brand and your energy. Like I keep talking about, all those things are just really synergistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's really, really cool looking brand, great product. Like I said, I've been using this for over 2 years before I even knew who you were. Because I think a lot of times too, that was the cool thing for me is we use certain products and we don't think about the people behind those products often. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is my favorite water, or this is my favorite whatever. Like there's a person behind that, and there's usually a story, and there's like so much more. And so that's why when I got the opportunity to meet you, I'm like, this was really cool, because it wasn't the other way around. It wasn't like I met you and I was like, oh, this guy's cool, like I'll give his product a shot. It was like, I love this product, it's unbelievable. And then it was kind of the reverse. And that's when you know that like there's the great synergy. You know what I mean? Like if I would have met you and you'd have been an asshole, I'd probably still use the product because it's awesome. But
yeah, I love it when people are like, oh my God, it's, we love the product before they know you, right? And they've got some story about like giving it to their mom, right? And it's really just, it's pretty meaningful. So I'm
really
really fortunate to be on this side of like the wellness industry, because I love it. We're not, just giving somebody something they don't need, right? It's something to like really actually help and people who are athletic, get them back into the weight room or wherever it is when they're suffering from pain and inflammation.
And for everybody listening, I'm going to link all the links in the show notes. You can find it everywhere. It's Cause, CAUSE, Medic, MEDIC. Go look at it, go get it. It's every product that I've tried from Hugh has been phenomenal and unbelievable. Let's move on to the next thing. So Clean Republic, like what are we doing here? What's going on?
Yeah, so Clean Republic we sold. So we don't have Clean Republic anymore. But that was probably the wildest experience of my life. What happened with Clean Republic, because we initially, our first farm was outdoors. The new one is, really nice. It's fully indoors, everything like that. And a lot of times with outdoor growing, you get powdery mildew. When you grow anything, it's really extremely common. It causes a lot of crop loss. And a lot of the chemicals they put on plants for powdery mildew, they tend to be pretty caustic. They can damage plant tissue. And so we were looking at oxidizers, things that were, clean, that wouldn't damage the plant. And so we started testing out hydrogen peroxide. It was way too acidic. And we sort of ended up on hypochlorous acid. It's the infection fighting compound in your white blood cells. It's also produced when lightning strikes the ocean. And so, we figured out a way to take salt water and then run electrolysis through it. We're not the first people to do this. It's actually the first time this was ever done was in World War I on the battlefield. The the Allied troops would make this to neutralize chemical burns from mustard and chlorine gas. But the problem is that it's not very stable. It's usually breaks back down into salt water, within a few weeks, usually I'd say like 4 weeks maximum, usually about 2 weeks. And so we actually figured out how to stabilize it, get 18 months essentially for its stability without adding any other chemicals to it, any stabilizers, and started using it on plants. And it actually started working really well. And so, our whole vision was like, okay, let's register this as a pesticide for actually like using in, organic crop production. And as we were going through this process, we sort of saw a bigger potential, because it ended up being like 200 times stronger than bleach at killing bacteria and viruses. But it's just salt, water, and electricity, and it's neutral pH, so it's really gentle. I always like demoed people. I just like spray it in my mouth and be like, do that with barbicide, watch what happens. And so we actually registered with the EPA as a hospital grade disinfectant. And I kid you not, 3 months later, COVID hit. And I knew literally nothing about disinfectants at this point. And then they tested our product on COVID, and we had one of the fastest kill times in the US. And so, all the spas shut down. And so literally we just transferred all of the cosmetic employees immediately over to Clean Republic. And before you knew it, we were selling to, the NFL, these huge, really big hotel groups, and, learning kind of as we go, selling to prisons. And honestly, it was a little soul sucking. It wasn't that fun selling disinfectant, but it was such a wild experience during the pandemic, where most people were, at home, just hoping that their jobs would open back up or working remotely. We all had to be like in the warehouse, like just shipping out just thousands of gallons of this stuff every single day. And so we sold the brand. I guess it was like a year and a half ago. So no longer involved with it, but it was a fun experience.
Well, talk about perfect timing, right?
Yeah, it was just pure luck. But for farmers out there, people who like to grow, I do recommend trying hypochlorous acid at like 100, maybe 200 parts per million. Spray it on like once every 14 days, and it can actually really help prevent a lot of those growths like powdery mildew. And what we saw is it started to cause a SAR response in the plants, which is almost like an immune system boost. So I think we're still learning a ton about hypochlorous acid. And I just hope that we continue to move away from, people think like Lysol, and they think like Lysol is Lysol, right? I did until a few years ago. I was like, oh, Lysol is its own thing. Actually, Lysol is quaternary ammonium. This is the same stuff that's in like barbicide and cavicide and metricide and all of these things that we know are insanely bad for you, especially in your lungs. And I remember, a lot of kids, when they went back to school, they were starting to get respiratory issues because they're having to disinfect their desk after every class with quaternary ammonium. And actually, New Jersey, all of the EMS teams were, disinfecting their ambulances with quats, and they all started developing respiratory issues. And the governor came out and said, like, no more emergency medical workers can't be, disinfecting in the air. They were spraying them with these like backpack sprayers. They like banned doing that because everyone was developing issues. So my recommendation, hopefully Lysol doesn't listen to this, but look for other options besides that, because it is essentially barbicide. If it ends in ammonium chloride or some sort of, bastardization of that, it's probably quaternary ammonium. So watch out for it.
Whoa, that is great info. Well, dude, you've done some really cool stuff. I mean, you've done some really awesome stuff up to this day. When I ask you on the thing, I'm like, hey man, what do you want the audience to get out of this conversation? You said to seek discomfort and embrace failure.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that come from? Let's talk about that for a minute.
Well, I've got to say, I still seek discomfort from what are they called? Yes theory. It's just this really positive YouTube channel where their whole thing is like saying yes to uncomfortable experiences. So, it can mean a whole myriad of things on their channel. Like they went and lived with Wim Hof for like a month, which is obviously going to be very uncomfortable, because you're
Yeah.
living with Wim Hof. Or they'll, get dropped off in Paris with no money. And then they just have to meet random people on the street and like have them be generous and like, and find a place to stay, be like, and just meet people that way. And I've always just thought that it's such a cool slogan to seek discomfort, because we're always like pushing for comfort. But
Yeah.
when do you feel the best? Is it after like a super hard workout, right? Like no one likes working out really hard. Everyone likes after you work out really hard, right? Because you just feel good. You put yourself in that really uncomfortable position, and like, or like you worked for something and you accomplished it. So, that's kind of what I like about Seek Discomfort is, don't be scared to go try things. Like even starting a business is going to be extremely uncomfortable. It's going to be extremely scary as well. And I know every single like billionaire has said this. They're just like, I've had a lot of failures, and I know it's a broken record, but it's true. You're probably gonna fail in your first business. So it's just, you've got to learn so much, and you'll just take those experiences and don't give up, and just try something new after that.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to struggle along the way, and even if the business is a success, there's going to be
Yeah.
struggles and adversities and all those things. I like that seek discomfort because you're so right. It's like we as humans are almost programmed to try to avoid it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we'll do everything we can to
Yeah.
not, even though I think we're smart enough to know the outcome of the discomfort will be positive, we
Yeah.
still don't step into the discomfort. Like the working out analogy is a great one. Somebody who knows that they're, really out of shape or really overweight or really unhealthy, it's like they stay stuck in that circle, that merry-go-round of actual discomfort in and of itself, right? They're not
Hmm.
comfortable, but they won't step into the momentary discomfort to get better.
Yeah. And I feel like, for me, if I'm like, okay, I'm on the road so much that, you have to work out every day or you're just going to be jet lagged. Right. And so every single time I'm like, get to the hotel, I don't want to work out. I never want to do it. And I think if you change your mentality from like, oh, I'm going to feel good after this, and instead just being like, oh, I'm going to try to be uncomfortable right now with my goal. It, for whatever reason, for me, that makes it a little bit easier, because when I'm like thinking, oh, like I need to do this because it's healthy, instead it's like, I want to do this because it's going to make my brain stronger for like doing something I don't want to do. Maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
that's just sort of how I like, I know everybody's different and how they think, but that's what I like to think about.
Yeah, I use that same philosophy. Like I always tell people, like when I'm on the road, like that's when working out's a non-negotiable. Like I
Yeah.
have to work out when I'm traveling because I think it does a lot of things. Like it minimizes the jet lag, keeps your normal quote unquote home routine in working order. You're probably not going to have the same comforts of food, right? Because you're not in your
No.
house. You can't
Yeah.
just go to your kitchen. Like it's going to be a little bit of an adversity there, finding things that you would normally eat. So it just kind of mitigates and offsets all of those things. And I think
Yeah.
that's so smart of you. It's like you get to a new place and you're like, the last thing you want to do is put your luggage down, throw your workout gear on and go work out. But every time you do, that discomfort creates way more comfortable scenarios for
Yeah.
the rest of your trip.
And by no means am I like the guy who's going to like the alpha male convention or something, but there is Jocko Willink. He's got this great video where he's like, oh, you're supposed to go on a run this morning, but it's like sleeting. Good. And he
Yeah.
just like starts, have you seen that
Yeah,
video?
I love that.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so motivating. And I think it's the same thing, but he's obviously like the baddest dude ever.
Right.
And so if you can like swap your mentality to be like, oh, good, I want to be uncomfortable, I think it can help. It can help.
Yeah, I use that. Like I think about that all the time with myself and with my clients. It's like because when we're in this place of like, well, I'll call like internal discomfort already, and we know we need to get like externally just, uncomfortable,
Yeah.
it's because we come up with these excuses and we're like, well, I would work out, but this. And I'm like, well, that's good. That's because if you can
Yeah.
work out in that place, like we get people all the time, they're like, well, I'm really busy right now, or I'm going to start this when I'm not so busy, or not so this, or not so that. I always ask them, like, do you think that you're ever going to be busy again during
Yeah.
your life? And they're like, well, of course I will be. I'm like, so
Yeah.
if you learn how to do this while you're busy,
Yeah.
imagine how amazing and easy it's going to be when you're not busy.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and if you keep waiting to get unbusy, like for you, like if you just, hey, I'll work out when I'm not busy anymore, you're not going to work out for the next 20 years.
Yeah. No, no way.
How
And
did you
hopefully,
how did you come up with this though? How did you start doing that? Because that's a really rare belief system. Like, have you always been like that, or did you start like?
luckily I started rock climbing when I was 12 years old. And so what ended up happening is, I started hanging out, I remember being like 14 years old, and these like 21-year-old rock climbers with tattoos everywhere would come pick me up at my parents' house. My mom would be like, who the hell
Where are you going?
But, the rock climbing mentality is, fortunately, if you want to be good at rock climbing, you have to train, and you can't be overweight, right? And be a good rock climber. And so there's a really good, for better or worse, like training mentality with rock climbing, where you just become completely obsessed with rock climbing. And so, I think I may have started like, I was like 14 years old, and I had in my backyard these like tiny little like wooden rungs on a wall that was like 45 degrees, and you just hang on it. It's called a campus board. Just like essentially do like almost like pull-ups like this with one arm, and go back down. And so I think that's the beauty of rock climbing, is training is like intrinsic to being good at rock climbing. So but for me, I always struggled with, because I really, like in college, when I was really, really, really climbing, and like even just right out of college, I was training my ass off. I had this great schedule. And then once like you become like a young adult, your schedule starts get a little weird. You miss your training day, and that would just like throw everything off for the week. I'd be like, oh my God, I missed one day. And then you get guilty, and then it just starts to like snowball. And I was really struggling with that. And I think I just had to kind of like change my mindset a little bit, that, it's okay. You're going to miss a workout. Don't let it throw you off your schedule. And, just to be able to pick it up, take a day off. If you're traveling, come back, pick it up again. I think you have to have the discomfort mentality, because once you get into the swing of working out, I know you're the same way. It's like you crave it, right? But the second you miss a couple of days, it becomes more of like a mental battle for whatever reason.
Totally. So 2 questions. So first one first. So mindset, like you seem to have a really unique mindset. Like you and I have a lot of parallels as far as like what you think. I mean, you've quoted Jocko and a couple other people. Like, did you like get into this kind of like that? I don't even know what you call it. Like the word personal development's a little bit kind of overused, but like really like this, I call it like human psychology. Like did you get into human psychology in your report? Like why we do what we do, and how we change our mindset, how we change our thoughts? Because it's uncommon for, especially someone, like you said, like just coming out of college, to like have that ability to reframe a situation and then develop and create a new mindset toward that. Was that just natural, or some kind of like,
No,
yeah.
Right when I started cosmetic, it's hard starting a business. And so I actually got really depressed, and, it was just high stress. I didn't pay myself anything for over a year. And so you really start to have like a lot of self-doubt. And, I think a lot of things really like snowballed mentally for me, where I was going to therapy. I even tried like SSRIs for a little bit, but it was really low point. And, so someone told me about this book called Tribe of Mentors, by Tim Ferriss. And
it's not a book. It's like war.
Yeah, it's like an encyclopedia.
It's like you can barely hold it in one hand.
Yeah, and the crazy thing that happened was I love it because all the chapters are really small.
Yeah.
And he just interviews really highly successful people, not just in business, but in anything. Like they could
Yeah.
be philanthropists or athletes, things like that. And so every morning I would just read a chapter and it takes you like 10 minutes, right? It's not like you're like, oh, I'm going to read for an hour every day. It's really easy to accomplish. And I just started to see all of these patterns from all the people who are really successful, and you start to notice these things that really everybody's doing. And so I slowly tried to, like, little things, like maybe I try to like go 30 days taking a really cold shower in the morning for 60 seconds, or the way that a lot of people organize their days, and like when you do emails, when you don't do emails, when you turn your phone off, sleep, all these, things that a lot of people know about now. But that honestly was like really motivating, just to read a chapter in the morning. And I learned about all these really cool people reading that book. And so you're like, oh, who's that? Okay. And then you go buy that person's book, right?
Yeah.
And then it just you start to learn about, everybody who's, I guess, in the self-help and like wellness industry. But
Yeah.
you obviously, there's a lot of shysters out there too, but there's a lot of really good people, and you shouldn't be embarrassed about self-help. I mean,
No way.
all the really successful people do the same thing. They're always like voraciously reading,
Yeah.
these types of things. So it's not, you don't have to go to like a Tony Robbins event or something like that. You can just, read some of and I recommend the Tim Ferriss book 100%. He has two
Yeah.
of them. It's like Tribe of Mentors, and I can't remember what the other one is called, but they're fantastic, easy to read, and you start to notice all the same patterns.
It's the success leaves clues, right? It's like there's
Yeah.
no, I mean, everybody's like, what's the secret? Like the secret is that there's really not a secret. It's all of these little things compounded upon each other, consistently done over time, that
Yep.
result in these really cool things.
A little bit of luck, a little bit
Yeah.
of luck
Oh,
too,
you're good. Listen,
for business at least.
I always say I'm the luckiest person I know, right? And thank God for that, because if not, like, you can be the greatest whatever on the planet, and if things aren't aligning for you, it's going to be a struggle. You need that little shot. I think what you did too, by just reading that chapter a day every morning, is you actually change the neural pathways of your brain, right? So most people get up in the morning and what happens? Like chaos ensues, right?
Yeah.
Phone, email, kids, wherever you're at in life, right? There's something that's coming at you, like, you're being, doused with a fire hose.
Mm-hmm.
You reset your brain every morning by just reading for 10 minutes. Not only just reading, but reading something like super successful.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon that you changed your own neural pathways. Like that's nature's SSRI, right? Like you started thinking differently, and that led to different thoughts, led to different actions, led to different words. You probably started talking differently, having different conversations, because you're probably like telling people, hey, have you ever heard of so and so? Like,
totally.
I read this thing today. It's so awesome. When you start doing that,
Yeah.
and the narrative changes, like this thing changes automatically. Like the human brain is so cool.
And then you'll be like, okay, everybody in this book meditate. So I'll read a chapter.
Yeah.
And then I bought like this Sam Harris before he became involved in all the scandals and stuff like that. I still love Sam Harris. He's great. But he's got a great app. He just like takes it from I think he's like a neurologist. But he does a really good job with meditation. And so for me, my mind's always going everywhere. Meditation helps. Instead of starting out with your phone, you can just figure out how to quiet your mind. It's a powerful thing as well.
I love that.
And
so let's talk about go ahead. Let's talk about rock climbing for a second, because I mean most 12-year-olds aren't chilling at the house being like, okay, like I'd like to risk my life today, climb up the the side of this mountain. Like, you grew up in Colorado?
I actually grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, you grew up in Tennessee. Okay.
It is honestly like one of the 3 rock climbing capitals of the US.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Phenomenal. I mean, like, there's beautiful sun-baked sandstone as far as the eye can see all around Chattanooga. And it's all within like a 5 to 20 minute drive, which is very unusual. So you could literally throw a rock and hit a rock climber in Chattanooga. It's amazing. And so where my parents lived, there was like literally climbing areas within 5 minutes from it. So I used to always like ride my bike back there, and I just like mess around on the rock and like wrestling shoes, and one thing led to another from there. And the community is what really drew me in too. It's one of those things where I always feel sorry when people don't have like a hobby that they're obsessed with and like can share it with the community, because that's how you build really good friends. Most of my friends right now I have from music and rock climbing, and I don't know how I would meet people without that, right? It's so difficult. Like, you don't meet lifelong friends in a bar.
Right.
You definitely meet them usually in whatever communities you're plugged into, because you share that common love for something.
That's
And
so
so it
true.
just sucked me in really early. It's one of those things that's like so terrifying when you start. You're up high, you got to kind of get over that fear of falling. And I recommend rock climbing to everybody. I mean, it's such a fun sport. And I don't go on vacation to the beach ever. I'm always like, put me in the mountains. And my wife and I, on like our honeymoon, we were in like a blizzard in Bishop, California, trying to boulder around the Sierra Nevadas and stuff. And I just love it. It's so fun.
That's really cool. And it's hats off to you for finding somebody who appreciates that as a significant other, as a partner in life. Cause that's,
Yeah.
unique to find somebody who wants to scale the side of a cliff on a Wednesday afternoon for fun.
Yeah.
Now, when you got into that, like, cause I'm just thinking about like the technicality of it. Like, yeah, I mean, when you're young, you go out there and you kind of tool around on the rock by yourself. When you talked about that community, was there like a mentor or a few in that group that are like, hey dude, if you really want to do this, like, and they kind of showed you how? Or
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
okay.
It's so important. Like, your first, people think that like rock climbing is really dangerous. It's not. But your first year of rock climbing is extremely dangerous as you're learning. Like, I remember for anyone who climbs, you probably have heard the term trad climbing. It's where like you place your own gear as you're climbing up, right? And so you're like, you've got cams and nuts and these things that you like put into like cracks and crevices in the rock. And so, if you fall, you're falling on something that you placed, right? It's not like a bolt that's bolted in. And I remember like I got to the top of the very first trad climb I did. It was called Jefferson Airplane at Sunset Rocks in Chattanooga. And I said, I clipped the anchors, leaned back, and literally as the rope went tense, every single piece of my gear popped out just from the tension on the rope as they were lowering me down. And so it literally, if I had fallen, it would have just gone like ting, 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 ting as I fell down. And so, those are the things where you look back on and you're like, holy shit, that was so
So
lucky.
hold on, wait a minute. I've never climbed. I won't even climb a ladder. So let's
Yeah.
talk about this for a second. So you're at the top, and there's people down below that are gonna help you come back down.
Yeah.
So
So like imagine, okay, so like imagine this is like the wall, right?
okay,
And so you have to get from here to here. And usually at the top, there's like two bolts at the top that are permanently there, right?
okay,
And so you climb up, and let's say I placed the piece of gear at the Apple phone, right? And let's say I made it to right here and then I fell. You would fall the distance to the Apple plus the distance above the Apple, right? And they would catch you. You'd go like that because your piece of gear is right here.
okay.
And so like I climbed to the top. I was like placing pieces the whole way. I got up on these bolts. And as they're lowering me down, I didn't even take a fall. It just ping, 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 ping. That's how badly I placed all the gear.
Because
It was hard.
you were attached to the main bolt at the top.
Yeah, I was attached to the permanent bolts. And so,
Okay.
I was on the bolts. Those aren't going anywhere. But the
Right.
pieces of gear I had placed were so horrible that they literally just all shot out from the rock as soon as the rope had any tension in it. So
That's a good lesson, right?
oh my God, yeah. And I remember I like first year I forgot to like tie my knot. I just had it through my harness, and I was like, luckily I was like 20 feet in the air, and I looked down and I was like, oh my God, I don't have my knot tied. And so you like down climb to the bottom. So, that's where the mentors definitely come in for climbing. Yeah. You can a lot of people they kind of show you the ropes.
I'm thinking about all the nuances between like that and being an entrepreneur, like owning a
Mm-hmm.
business, starting a business. I mean, some days it does feel like you're metaphorically climbing a rock, and sometimes without any help, right? Like
Yeah.
you're placing your own things that you talked about, and you're having to navigate the
Yeah.
face of this cliff, on your own with, making decision after decision after decision. So there's a lot of parallels there. So I
Yeah.
can see
Did you play sports growing up?
yeah, I played any like football, baseball, basketball. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in Texas. So in Texas, you basically come out of the womb playing football. Like you
Yeah.
get you get your mouthpiece when you're like you get 3 days old and the whole 9 yards. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I think sports have been without it, I don't know that I would have the same level of whatever it is, right? Like this, don't quit attitude. I'm just that guy who's always gonna I'm always gonna do the extra thing that needs to be done, even without being told to do it. I've always been like a weird kid. Like I grew up harassing my coaches, like asking them if I could get a key to the weight room so that I could lift weights anytime I wanted to. So I've always been
weightlifting, you know what I like about weightlifting and rock climbing versus like ball sports and things like that. I love playing ball sport. I grew up playing like a lot of baseball.
Yeah.
But it's so measurable. It's like, okay, with weightlifting, it's like, oh, I benched 225 last month. Now I'm benching 235. You see, and you can measure results, and it gets you really psyched. Same thing for climbing. It's got a rating system.
Yeah.
And then you like train for something, you keep trying it, and then the next year you freaking crush it, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so much better now because of like the work I put in. Whereas like with soccer, I feel, if you're like, practicing kicking the ball, it's really hard to like see that daily progression that you're getting, right? And so that's what I like about sports, that where you can like measure success like that.
Yeah, the ball sports are more subjective, right? It's like, oh, well, that was good based on all these other variables, or somebody else's opinion, like, oh, you did really good today. It's like, I mean? It's like, well, like if the gym and like you're talking about rock climbing, it's like the numbers are the numbers, right? One of my favorite sayings, I don't know if Henry Rollins said it or whoever it was, but the weights don't lie, right? The weights don't treat you any differently. They don't feel sorry for you. No. They don't coddle you. They could care less about your emotions. They are what they are, right? And you either do or you don't. And I think that's business too, right? When you're talking about numbers, like I always tell people in business, like the numbers don't lie. Like, you know what I mean? Like profit is profit, loss is loss. There may be some reasons for that, but those numbers are fixed, right? They're hardcore data points. So I think both of those things really transition into business life, the whole 9 yards.
Oh yeah. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like scared of the numbers, right? And you'll just sort of that's the last thing you're thinking about. I know so many people who are starting a business. I'm like, do you know how to read a cash flow statement or an income statement or a balance sheet? And it's always like, no, that's my bookkeeper,
Scary. It's too scary.
Yeah. And so like I luckily one of my undergraduate degrees was in accounting. I had a good mentor in college who was like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, first things first, like know how numbers work. And I think it's really important to be able to understand that. Like you shouldn't do your books, but you should, if you needed to, you should know how. That's the level you should understand accounting. If you're going to start a business, like you should be able to do that and understand it.
It goes back to that seek discomfort, right? That, you be able to embrace it. Because when you first start a business, like the numbers usually aren't great, right? They're not usually amazing. Like, hey, look at me, I'm rich. Like, that doesn't.
You gotta like be like, how much more burn do I have left? Before all of a sudden one day you wake up and you're like, oh no, we're out of cash. We're gonna have to.
I remember when I was younger, like nobody really taught me about money. Like I grew up in this little tiny town in Texas, like at one stoplight, like. I didn't know anything about money. I didn't know how to write a check. I didn't know what a bank account was. And so when I got in college, I was just like a moron. Like, like zero concept, zero clue.
Too.
What does this mean? Oh, credit card. This will be awesome. Take my take my money. And so it's like, as you get older, and especially when you start businesses, then you start to be like, what's margin? Well, what does that even mean? Like you start doing all these things. And I think if I look back on kind of what you're talking about, like with the rock climbing, the weightlifting, and the sports, it's like, okay, like it's a lot of the same principles really kind of like over connect in there. And if you can do those things, it really sets you up for success.
Yeah. And I don't know anyone who's not scared of heights or falling, right? And, when you start climbing. But unless you're on something really sketchy where you're like really run out, climbing, you can get past that barrier, right? And it sort of teaches you how to like embrace that fear a little bit, because it's just part of climbing. And climbing is 99% falling. 1%, you don't count that you've done. I don't know if you climbed before, but
No.
you don't send something until you get from the bottom to the top without falling. It's not that like you make your way to the top, that doesn't count, right? You're working to be able to do that. And so 99% of the time you're climbing, you're just failing constantly. And then you can, you finally send it and you're like, oh my God, yes, this is amazing.
That's cool. Was there like I don't even know what you call it. Was there like a trophy or a milestone, like when you started climbing and you kind of got more into it? And you're like, okay, this particular mountain or whatever you call it, like, that's the guy. Like when I get to that level, I'll feel like I actually made it. I'll feel like I'm a climber.
Yeah, there's like levels. And I think when you're young, you're like, oh yeah, I want to climb like a 512 or something. And then you want to get up to like 514. 514 is it's like this benchmark for you're climbing really strong, and you've had to train your ass off to get there. For me, climbing on El Cap in Yosemite, that was a really big thing. It's freaking scary up there, and it's blue collar rock climbing. You're like hauling these like 400 pounds of gear behind you, and so you climb up and then you just start hauling. You're like sweating, getting baked in the sun, and Yosemite is, I think, one of my favorite places in the world, just because it's. Have you ever been there?
No.
Oh God, you've got to go check it out. I mean, El Capitan is absolutely stunning. And have you seen the Alex Honnold movie Free Solo?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's for me, I just sitting there watching it, my hands are sweating. I'm like, God, how is he able to do this? Because it is sketchy rock climbing up there. And you're thousands of feet in the air. And doing like really slippery, slabby rock climbing on El Cap, and it's wild. So El Cap for me, it was like a really big one. I wanted to be able to do that, at least do like the nose and a few other ones. So
let's talk about the free solo guy for a second. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, is he just an anomaly, or is it years and years of training? Is it a little bit of luck? Is it a little bit of everything combined? I mean, in your opinion, obviously. I mean,
yeah, he's not the best. He's not the best rock climber, and he'll tell you that. He's
from a technical perspective.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, he's really like nothing that special. I mean, he's really strong, right? He's a great rock climber, but he's not in that like elite level of climbing. But every single rock climber will tell you that Alex Honnold is just insane mentally, that he can be able to do these things. Like I don't think there's another climber like him who's doing anything like him. I mean, free soloing El Cap is just the wildest thing in the world, that he's able to just turn off that fear. And there's usually like one climber every generation who's really into free soloing. There's like Dan Osman in like the 80s.
On a level of like 0 to 10, 10 being the most insane thing ever, that would be level 10 level.
10, yeah. Like you would never, him free soloing El Cap, you never understand. Like the general public doesn't understand it.
No concept.
Once you get up on El Cap and you're climbing up there, you fully grasp it, and it's insane. Like the guy's got no fear, and he's able to just turn off that part of his brain. I don't know anyone else who could who would consider that ever. And so it's really impressive. If you haven't seen Free Solo, it's such a good movie. But as a climber, it's like the most terrifying thing you've ever seen. In most climbing movies that get popular, they're like pure shit, like Vertical Limit, hilarious, Cliffhanger, hilarious, right? But there's no rock climber who doesn't like speak with reverence about Honnold for what he did, because it's crazy.
That's cool. So it's a mindset thing. It's like just being able to turn that fear factor off in your brain.
Yeah. You got to get really strong, and then just have that screw loose a little bit.
Interesting. As not being in the community, I would not have known that he would not be considered, like, from a technical perspective, one of the elite of elites. That's interesting.
I'd say he's like top 10%, but at the very back of that, right?
That's really cool.
As far as like strength, pure strength goes.
For me, that even makes it cooler, because then in my brain goes to things of like, I'm a big believer in, like, as humans, we have a capacity to do things that we can't even conceptualize, right?
Yeah.
Both physical, mental, emotion, everything. And I think like that's such a great story for him to say like, oh, hey, this guy's not even probably the best.
No.
And this is what he did. I always like use an analogy of like, if you looked at like, from a football perspective, like Tom Brady has more Super Bowls than anybody else in history. But from a pound for pound quarterback perspective, he's definitely not the best quarterback to ever play the game. I mean, he's at arm strength. I mean, all those things. He's good. Like he's in the top 10%, but he's not the guy. Like if you said who's the best at this technical aspect. So I think those are really great analogies.
And for I think Alex, like as far as bouldering is really like measuring like your power, and then your endurance is measured by like routes. But bouldering wise, I think Alex, maybe he's climbed a V14, but I think he's more around like V13. And as his top, I've climbed V13 before. And there's guys like out there climbing like V16, potentially V17 now. And so it's like multiple grades above him as far as like pure bouldering strength goes. But Alex is much better on routes. But as far as like overall, just like crusher, rock climbing, pebble crusher strength, like he's still not in that elite level.
That's cool to know, though. I love that. I like that he's not. I like that he's not. It makes me appreciate it even.
I know, right?
Makes me appreciate it a little bit more. Like, I mean, he's not like the guru of rock climbing, but he did this incredible feat that somebody with more skill might not even be willing to try.
Yeah,
right? Because of the complete insanity of the mental aspect that it would take. Dude, I feel like you have got a little free solo in you as far as like your business trajectory. Like I admire your willingness to work your ass off. It's like you talked about earlier, like, when you get hot, like stay hot and keep doing those things. I think I probably know the answer, but what's on the agenda for you? Like what does the next like 6 months look like? What's the next year look like? What are you going to do with the business and everything else?
Yeah, we're still we've got a lot of new products that we're trying to roll out right now that we've been working on for a while. It's going to be still a lot of so here's something interesting. So my business partner, and one of the three partners in cosmetic, he started an ice company and sold it in the mid 9 figures. So he made a lot of money, right?
Right.
And
yeah.
he's been like the best mentor. He calls me like snowflake, right? He's older than me. He's like in his mid 50s. So he like considers all millennials snowflakes. So he'll be like, hey, snowflake, what are you worried about today? Things like that. And, when we started, he would just always give me the same advice. He'd be like, sales are king, go make sales, go make sales, go make sales. That's all he would say. He's like, get your ass on the road and make sales. And he's 100% right. Sales can solve 90% of your problems with your business. And so I think a lot of owners don't want to get out and sell, but the best ones can sell. And, you're the most passionate person about your company, and no one's going to sell it like you. That's why I'm on the road 3 days a week I love being around people, telling them about the brand and like getting them as excited as I am about it. And we still have reps, they still manage the accounts and stuff like that. You don't have to get like buried in paperwork and things like that, but get out there as an owner, keep your finger on the pulse. It'll actually lead to new ideas, new product development ideas. Don't like stay behind a desk. And if you want to build a national brand, you're going to have to travel. You're not going to do it behind a desk. I mean, you may, but for the most part, it's going to be tough, right?
That's one of the things that stuck out to me when I first met you. And you said it again. We met in Vegas, then we saw each other a couple of weeks later in Arizona. And we had the same conversation about two different things. Yeah. And you were talking about you were talking about a new like big spa, like big resort, bringing in your product. And you're like, I'm going to go do it myself. Yeah. You said that to me in Vegas. Then we saw each other again. And you're like, oh yeah, after this, I'm headed down to Tucson. Big organization brought us in. I'm going to go do it myself. And I was like, that's interesting, because that's not what most people would do in that scenario. They would be like, oh, I'm already on the road. I'm going to send somebody else, go home, like kick my feet up. So I really admired that about you, is your willingness to, and you were like, it's not that they couldn't do it, but I'm going to go do it. Like, I'm going to go like give it everything that I've got.
Yeah. And that's for, I mean, that's like when they're already a client and they want you to come train like the therapist and esthetician. So 99% of brands are just going to send
Yep.
like an educator out there.
Yep.
But, you know, for me, obviously you can't do it for every client, but
Right.
for your really, you know, your those 20% of clients who are the ones who are, you know, 80% of your revenue, I'll personally come in, I meet all the therapists, all the staff, the janitors of the spa, the people who are working in the locker rooms, right? And they'll all, every single time I go, it's like people just assume you're a sales rep or someone, and then when they find out you're the owner, they're like, holy cow, like owners never come here to like talk with us, right? And it puts like a face and a name to the company. It makes it feel more like familiar. And you know, you can't be too good to do something in your own business. Like, just set the ego aside. And it's actually one of my favorite things to do is when I get to come in and meet all the staff and, you know, who are actually working at the spa. And so I think you can translate it to industries outside of the spa. It's, you know,
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool that really differentiated you from a lot of conversations I have with business owners and entrepreneurs and people like that. And
yeah. What can you teach me from your writings? I haven't gotten the opportunity to order your books yet, but I will be.
Gosh, man. You know, wrote the first book, The Overweight Mind, which is really just like all the psychological reasons. Like, you could really take like the weight loss perspective out of it, but it's like the core foundation of like why as humans we struggle. You know, we struggle to make different decisions, we struggle to grow. And you and I touched on a lot of those earlier. It's like retraining your brain, using different language, like all of those types of things just really matter in the grand scheme of growth. I wrote the book because I'd been in the weight loss world for several years and I was having super success. I was helping people lose a ton of weight, massive success. And then they would go, you know, they'd move on. They'd be like, hey, Jay, I lost 120 pounds. Thank you. I'm going to go on with my life. I'd see them 6 months later and it was like nothing ever happened. Like, they gained 120 pounds back. And I'm like, as a high achiever, as a winner, that pissed me off. I wasn't mad at them. I was mad at myself. I'm like, what did I not do? Like, what did I not do that didn't set them up for like long-term success? So I got pissed at myself first and foremost. And I'm like, okay, I got to figure out a solution to this, because I can get the result, but I'm not making it stick. And so I started thinking about the psychology. So what I did is I took the world of weight loss and the world of personal development, and I just married them. And so I have an online, like, you know, I'd call it like a group training program called Thrive Forever Fit, that we train and help people create a lifestyle that's forever. Like, not this like yo-yo dieting, not this, you know, all these things of that nature. And then my second book's called The Purpose of Pain, like how to turn tragedy into triumph, because life's not supposed to suck. So it's kind of like my journey into personal development, like how I kind of got started and got to where I am today with like the way that I think, the way that I, you know, talk, the way all those things. It's like my dad got killed when I was 5 years old. And I spent the next, like, from 5 to 20 in this like super dark place of just believing that like my life sucked. Like, bad things happened to me. Like, my best friend, you know, died when I was 17. I gave him CPR on Christmas Day till the paramedics came. When I was 25, my actual college best friend put a shotgun in his mouth and blew his head off. And it was after that I said, okay, enough's enough. Like, I'm only 25. Like, this is going to end. It's going to end really quickly, or I'm going to have to change. And so that's when I started like looking into personal development, like changing the way I thought and the way I talked and the way all those things. So the second book's really about that. It's like, no matter how crappy this first part of your story is, you can really turn it into anything just by making some decisions and thinking differently and surrounding yourself with different people and consuming different things. And, you know, just kind of like I'm a human psychology, like, guinea pig, I guess you would say. So,
I think, do you ever watch My 600-Pound Life? I think is what it's called. That, man, I'm kind of addicted to that show. I like watching it. Like, if I'm on an airplane for whatever reason, I feel like it's always on airplanes, and like, it's just it's like the same episode every time. And actually, it's one of my impressions I do. I do the doctor from my 600-pound life.
Oh, who says no to that?
I'll set it. I've never done this before, and especially on a caught on camera. But the guy, so his name's Doctor On or No or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And
Anybody who's seen the show knows exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, he'll be like, "Well, Jay, I put you on your salad diet, but you've just been eating chicken fingers. You gained 400 pounds, and I will not be able to do the surgery on you." And he's always gets so pissed at them, and he'll get like so angry. And but every now and then, when the people actually do the work, it's like the most just so uplifting. You're just sitting there like, "Oh, this is amazing. He just changed that person's life." But that's not the norm.
No, people always ask me like, what's one of the most gratifying things that you do? You get to do, and it's like it's a story like that. When I've helped somebody lose like 100 pounds, 200 pounds, even 50 pounds, like I'll get messages like people I don't even know will say, "Hey Jay, I read your book and it changed my life in the following ways." Like I've had people that read my second book, The Purpose of Pain, and messaged me and said, "Hey, like I've been suicidal for a long time, and I read your book and it really gave me hope, and I changed X, Y, and Z." And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I mean, definitely did not write the book for that, for that purpose. But like the fact that you can impact somebody's life that you never met, that you'll never meet, that you, whatever, like I mean, I just got goosebumps because like that's the reason that, we all get to do what we get to do, right? It's like, it's like the story with your mom. It's like, that's a super unfortunate situation. And instead of just sitting by and just watching, you were like, not today. Like there's gonna be some, not today. Like wrong guy. I'm gonna figure this out. And that's what you did. And that's kind of what inspires me about you and people with the energy that you have. And so I just want to continue to.
Well, when you change someone and get them like addicted to exercise, it literally probably affects so many aspects of their life that they weren't even thinking about when they started doing it. They're like, I want to look good. And then all of a sudden you start feeling good. You become like your attention level just skyrockets, your productivity. Like and I hate this movement right now that I'm on Reddit a lot. And, if I'm like at nighttime bored, I'll look at Reddit, and there's this like movement where it's like, oh, exercise, you're such a meathead, like telling people to go exercise. Oh, go watch Joe Rogan, or like, it's just this weird thing where people are like very anti, like trying, like, don't tell people to try to get healthy to improve how they feel mentally. And it's so strange to me that it's like this meathead, they're putting in this like meathead mentality box when it's so not even close to that.
I talk about it as being like it's one of the most synergistic pieces of life. Like if you get your health in good working order, it affects your relationships, it affects your money. Like you make better decisions. Like your money just seems to start becoming more abundant. Like all the things, like your beliefs, like your life just gets so much better. So I think that life in and of itself is like so synergistic. Like you can't be so out of whack in one phase and think that the other phases aren't going to be affected. It's just it's impossible, right? And so when I hear people say things like that, like, oh, like, you're shaming or meatheading or this or that, I'm like, we're literally just talking about moving your body. Like literally just go for a walk. Like go for a walk and like pick something up off the ground and put it back down. It's like it's actually the most. And you could probably, I bet you would attest to this. Like whenever you're rock climbing and you're physically exerting yourself, both mentally and physically, that's got to be one of the craziest things, right? I think there are some parallels between weightlifting. Like you get under 600 pounds, like it's a psychological thing just as much as it is as a mental thing. And so it changes your chemistry. It changes the way you think.
Yeah.
Like if you ever, it's hard to be depressed when you're on the side of El Capitan, like in that environment doing all that. You're not thinking about being sad or anything like that. This is it, man. Like you're
alive. It's the most alive you'll ever be. Everything. You just smell, like you're smelling things, you're like breathing, you're like feeling the sun. It's like it all just kind of comes together. And if you're kind of think it's like a meathead thing, you're anti-science, because literally all research points that exercise is so healthy for you in so many different ways.
Dude, I've had people that were, you know, really overweight that have come to me. They've lost the weight. They got so much confidence. They became attorneys. They became doctors.
Yeah.
Like they got into these amazing relationships, started making more money than they've ever made in their entire life. And like
Yeah.
we literally just got them to start thinking differently and
Yeah.
treating themselves with a little bit of respect when it came to their physical body.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
Yeah, you're
It's
not
like,
gonna start cage fighting, right? You're not gonna turn like join the
no,
UFC. You know, it's like
no.
you can
That's
be the
all
doctor of
Instagram,
body.
right? That's
Yeah.
all. That's the social media highlight reel when you're looking at that, and it's like, you know, I always tell people like if you're trying to get like, you know, on the cover of Sports Illustrated, like I'm not your guy. Like if you want to be like, you know, this is not me. Like I want to help you live a better life. And
Yeah.
that just means like that means synergistically across the board. Like I don't want you just to have a great physical body and then your relationships suck and
Yeah.
your beliefs suck and like your life is a shambles. Like I want to help you create a lifestyle that's just so. And I think that's a lot of what you're doing, man. Like this brand that you've created is not just the. I mean, I've been in this industry with Lori. I mean, Lori and I've been together almost 20 years. She's been an esthetician for 25 years, spa owner, business. I mean, multiple businesses, teaches women all across the world how to be successful in the spa world. So I've probably been to as many trade shows as you have, like
Yeah.
from day one. And I see a brand like yours and I'm like, this isn't just a skincare brand. Like this isn't just like, hey, here's your 3-step process. Like put this on when you go to bed. Like there's a power and a meaning and a frequency and an energy. We'll come back to that behind your brand. And it's like, and after talking to you today, I know that everybody else is going to hear that. So I'm not even the least bit shocked of how successful you are. And I think the sky's the limit. Like when I started using your stuff 2 years ago, I'm like, hey, this stuff is really good. It's really awesome. I really love it. Now I know why. Like, cause now I know that like, it's more than just, you know, pumping the lotion out and putting it on and going about my day. Like there's something bigger behind it. So I'm
Yeah.
proud of you, dude. This is cool.
Yeah, you too. You're doing really cool things. You know, you're like so many different aspects of wellness
Oh,
that,
thank you.
you know, not everyone was lucky enough that someone gave me that Tim Ferriss book, right? And so
Yeah.
you're the one who's already done all the research, who can like, you know, show people different things to test out. You know, not everything works for everybody. So, you know, you gotta try a bunch of different things and see what works.
I totally agree.
Like I hated CrossFit. I don't like CrossFit very much, you know, like, but
Yeah.
people love CrossFit. So it just wasn't for me.
And that's what I tell people all the time. They're like, "Oh, do I have to do this?" And I'm like, "You don't have to do anything. Like,
No.
I want you to find what lights you up. Like for
Yeah.
you, it's rock climbing. It's like if I here's the foolish nature of that. It'd be like, that you don't. I mean, it's not good enough, right? You need to do CrossFit and rock climbing, or you need to
Yeah.
do. You know, you need to get into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It'll help you be a better rock climber. It's like,
Yeah.
I literally don't want to get choked on a Wednesday evening.
No,
You know
me
what I mean?
neither.
After work, it's not for me. Like that's not to say it's not awesome, but it's not for me. And so I'm with
Yeah.
you. Like I'm not a CrossFit guy. Like it's like there's modalities for everybody, but it's just about finding your happy, like finding the
Yeah.
thing that gets you to go do it. And if it's rock climbing or even if it is CrossFit, knock yourself out. Like, get all in on it.
And I guarantee you, the people who get to black belt in jujitsu, the reason they do is because they got plugged into a community, right?
Yep.
And there's like, you know, I remember like after school with rock climbing, people are like, okay, we're going to the climbing gym, you know, and like your friends and you, like the health activity is with your community and your
Yeah.
friends. And that just makes it so much easier because you're not like lone wolf, like trying to do it all on your own, you know?
Totally.
And, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes like I would be like sitting on my ass and they'd be like, get to the gym. And I'd be like, damn it. Okay, fine, let's go, you
You'll
know?
be there. Yeah. We do a lot of that with our Thrive Forever Fit community. We do an online, I do an online coaching call every Wednesday at 2:00. We have live events that people from all over the country come to at my studio, at my actual physical gym. It's really community driven. Like our 5 a.m. class, sometimes in the past, it's had up to 40 people in it. It's
Oh, no
wild.
kidding.
And then on Saturdays, we'll bring in a coffee truck, we'll bring in like breakfast, we'll bring in music, the whole 9 yards, and like, you know, we'll have 50 to 100 people show up and do workouts and hang out and have fun. It's like it's more of a community aspect, and that's what keeps people going. Like let's be honest, like losing weight by yourself sucks.
Yeah.
Like lifting weights by yourself sometimes sucks.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, if you know somebody else is going to be there that's in the same boat you are and they're encouraging you, it's like well, heck yeah, I'll go do that. Like, so yeah,
Yeah.
find a community. I think that's a
That's
great
how you get
advice.
your socialization a lot of times. So do you
Yeah.
get up? Do you do the class at 5 a.m.? You're like teaching it?
Yeah. Yeah. I do. So
How the hell do I get up at 4:30 in the morning? Tell me,
I
because
get,
I try and
I get up at 3 a.m.
what the hell? How do you do
Yeah.
this?
I, j-
How do I get up early? I
I'm
can't
programmed.
for the life of me figure it out.
I'm programmed. I'm a lot like Jocko when he shows his watch every day, like on his
Yeah.
social media. It's like I get up at, so I teach the classes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. So
Okay.
Thursday, Friday are my office days, podcast days, business stuff. But yeah, I get up at 3 a.m. and it's just, gosh, I've been doing this for over 10 years. So I don't know.
What
I'm
time
the
do you
kind,
go to sleep?
I would love to be lights out, eyes closed by 9,
Okay.
but that's 50% of the time. But I've been, sometimes 8 o'clock. Like it really depends on the week. But I'd say 9 o'clock to 9:30 is kind of like the zone in
So
there.
6 hours,
Yeah.
you're good.
No, it's I'm good. So what I do is I'm so structured. I'm so like programmed. Like everything is in my planner. Like I plan my day out to when I eat, when I work out, when I move. Everything is kind of planned. Obviously, there's variations of that. But what I've started doing as I've gotten older, I'll be 49 in like 2 weeks. So as I'm approaching 50, I'm finding that the 6 hours isn't really enough. So
Mhm.
what I do mid afternoon is I take like a 30-minute little like power nap and
Yeah.
I schedule it in. It's from this time to this time every single day. Shut my phone off, shut everything off, nap for 30 minutes. And it seems to be like the re-trigger that I need to go ahead and hammer for the rest of the afternoon.
You know, a lot of people talked about naps in the Tim Ferriss book. So,
Yeah. Oh,
I
see
guess I'm
that
not
might
too
have been
surprised.
that might have been where I got it from because I remember thinking like when I was younger, I was anti-nap. I'm like, winners don't take naps. Like this is bullshit. I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? As I got older, I'm like, maybe there's something to this napping thing. And so
Yeah.
I'm like you. You probably research things, right? If you hear something, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go check this out myself.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I started looking into the science behind it. And if you know who Andrew Huberman is,
Oh yeah, definitely.
okay, so I listened to a lot of him and those guys, and they'll like from a psychological perspective, a 30-minute nap, like midday or whatever, is almost has the equivalency of like a full night's sleep from a almost like a resetting the battery. Like not from a total reparative standpoint. Like you're not getting into like, full REM and you're not cycling
Right.
through all 5 stages. But what it does is it's almost like supercharging your iPhone. Like your iPhone's like at 10%, and then you put it on like one of the superchargers and it gets it back up to like 90. So they
So
say
you do
that,
like 30 minutes. 30
yeah,
minutes is like
yep.
the anything over 30, you probably start to go into deeper cycles. You wake
Yeah, you get a
up
little bit
groggy.
groggy. You get a little
Yeah.
bit groggy. You get a little bit weird. It's kind of like that lethargic thing if like your brain doesn't work. But yeah, and so I'm very routine about it. So I find it. So the 30-minute window, then I get up and I have a little system that I go through just to kind of get me replugged in, uber hydrated, and then I just go back to work, man. And it's like it's been a
All
beautiful
right.
thing for me.
I'm gonna follow back up with you in a few
Yeah,
weeks. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try to do, I've been
yeah.
wanting to get up at like a little bit before 5, because I'm not getting calls, emails, get a lot
What
done.
time do you get up now?
I usually get up now about 6:30.
Okay. So don't be crazy. Don't say like I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. Just for the next week, start getting up either at 6:15 or 6 o'clock. Only break.
Yeah.
I would only go in like 15 to 30-minute increments max
Yeah.
as you start to bridge into that. So like next week, starting on like Sunday or Monday, whenever you want, like get up at like 6:05. Like set like a random time that like creates like a new nuance in your brain of
Yeah.
like, okay, 6:05, that's my get up time.
Yeah.
Right. So what I do is I like in my phone, like I'm really big on like mantras and like weird stuff. But my alarm clock at 3 a.m. underneath it, it says time to change the world. So anytime I change
Nice.
that thing, like I have a mantra that goes along with that. Like, I always tell people, I'm like, if I look over at my alarm clock at 3 a.m. and it says time to change the world and I hit snooze,
Yeah.
who's that guy? Like
Yeah.
you can't do that.
Yeah.
Success. I always in one of my other mantras is success doesn't have a snooze button. It's not gonna
Yeah.
wait. It's not gonna wait for you.
Yeah.
So for me, I've got to get up and go. So yeah, just start to do that. Like find a time, do it for a week, see how you feel, and then if it feels good, then take another like 10 minutes off of it. Get up at like 5:45.
You know what I did one time is I got this thing called the shock watch, and it literally shocks you at the time you set for your alarm.
What?
Yeah, it's called the Pavlok. it's like this
Yeah,
like
like Pavlov's
Pavlovian
dog. Yeah.
response kind of with like, man, it was horrible. Like, I'd set it for 5:30 and then to just send electricity through your body, like it actually worked because you're so wide awake after getting shocked with electricity, but it's sort of like you're introducing something negative with waking up. It's kind of the opposite of a Pavlovian response, actually,
Right.
but it definitely got you up. That's for sure.
It's like a little bit of torture to start your day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
It's like somebody throwing a cold bucket of ice water on you while
yeah,
you're dead
exactly.
asleep. Okay.
Yep.
How long did that last?
Oh, just a couple of weeks. So yeah, not very long.
That is hysterical. But yeah, touch base with me again a couple of weeks. Let me know how the progression right there, but just stage it up. Like, I think what you'll find too is like, as busy as you are, like to have that like hour and a half, 2 hours of like solace time of like, okay, hey, nobody's gonna call me right now. I don't have to, there's no fire to put out, there's no anything. Like, it's really gonna be that like new peaceful calm for you. So it's like I get up at 3 and then I spend about an hour in my office before I go to the studio. So I get to the studio about 4, kick off everything about 5 a.m. So that first hour of the day is like super special.
Well, my goal today was to get some free advice from you I didn't have to pay for, and I think I just got it. So,
well, dude, anytime, man. The window is open for you anytime you need any kind of advice at all. And like I said, I think you're a rock star. I'm blessed and grateful that I got the opportunity to meet you, and I think it's super cool of you that you took your time today to come on the show. Appreciate that.
hey, it's an honor to be here. Love what you're doing, and we'll be a longtime listener. So, really appreciate it.
Dude. All right, guys, everything will be in the show notes. I know you guys are super jazzed. If you have any questions, reach out to me. If it's something I can't answer, I'll farm it out to Hugh and we'll get you guys taken care of and get everybody where they need to be. Love you guys, and we'll be back next week with another episode. Hey, before you go, I'd just like to say thank you again for listening to the Thrive Forever Fit podcast and watching on YouTube. It means the absolute world to me. And if you would do me one favor, and that is simply subscribe and review this podcast on whatever platform it is that you enjoy it on, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, doesn't matter. I would absolutely be so grateful and so thankful if you do that for me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you again next week with an awesome, awesome episode. Bye.